This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the science podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Ganya.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Today we have an intriguing episode where we usually say we're going to go deeper or we're going to go inside of something. Today we are going on the outside.
We are, exactly. What problem are we solving today?
Why would you build an exoskeleton?
Why would you build an exoskeleton? Well, that is an interesting question, and one I'm very excited to learn the answer to. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the terrific Bill Billotte. He is Executive Director of, listen up, the Exotechnology Center of Excellence.
Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about exoskeletons and all of these cool things. But I like to start the show with when you were a kid. Did you build stuff like robots and build your own exoskeletons and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. I'm old, so I built lots of stuff. And, everything from Tinker Toys to Legos to Lincoln Logs, all that kind of stuff. And just made stuff with just wood and sticks outside. So I was always like building something or playing around with something, doing something outside the house, if at all possible. I grew up with my mom's like, get out, go outside.
That was me too. We'll see you in a couple hours,
Oh yeah, come back for supper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those were the days.
So jumping into that just a little bit deeper, were you that kid that was also sort of going overboard? Were you bringing in too many sticks from the house, or were you taking apart mom's and dad's things because one of their things had a part that you just truly needed?
Well, I did not take apart anything, so that saved me probably some pain and suffering. But I was always bringing sticks and other stuff into the house. I was always like out and running around doing something, trying not to get in too much trouble, but all over the place. I grew up in a small town.
Yeah,
so
me too.
We just went everywhere and explored nature or whatever we could get into at the time. Like, a million times I went down to this little creek. It was basically a drainage ditch. And catching like some sort of thing out of a crawfish or something like that out of it and bringing it back home. And
of course.
Trying to keep it alive and, not being successful for very long. But, I was always doing that kind of stuff. And then when I was really, I don't know, maybe I'll say middle school age, I got like a small little chemistry set. So, of course, trying to mix things up and make things blow up or,
that was the point of those, right?
Exactly. Get something to boil over or make some color change or something. So, I was always into that kind of stuff. It was fun.
That's awesome. And so that led to, like, you have a degree in mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering, and biology.
Correct.
So you started in mechanical. Is that because you wanted to build things there too? Like, how did you get into mechanical?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I kind of fell into engineering. I didn't even know what engineering was, to be very honest. The only reason I got into engineering, I was doing well in high school, getting all A's, all that kind of stuff. And my math teacher was talking about her daughter one day. And her daughter had just gone to college and she'd gone to Georgia Tech and she was talking about engineering. And I was like,
good school, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds interesting. And so when I was getting ready to apply for schools, I applied to Georgia Tech. And I figured, I was not real smart about this. I only applied to Georgia Tech. I didn't even apply to anybody else because I didn't even know better.
Okay.
And, I figured the fallback is we had a technical college near our town. I said, I could get in that if it doesn't work out. Just brilliant, brilliance right there. And luckily I got into mechanical engineering, just really loved it. And did that for many years and made it through it. You kind of survived Georgia Tech.
Yes. My
it's a
son
tough
and
school.
daughter-in-law went there. My son was a material science engineer from there.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And then went from there and kind of got, a little bit of a bug to, loving school. And maybe it was also a little bit, it's like avoid the real world a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And went on and did a master's. And then I thought I was done with the master's. I was like, okay, once I hit master's, I'm done. I'm not going to do this. Again, I'm going to university in Ohio, working on my biomedical engineering degree at Wright State University. End up doing my thesis work at a different school because my advisor has a friend at a different school that does research, and he didn't do research. And so I'm working for a physiologist in a biology department doing my thesis.
Wow.
And then the guy's like, he was a great guy, Dr. Badgepie. And he's like, hey, come into the PhD program. And I was like, yeah, I'm an engineer. We all called him Doc. I'm an engineer, Doc. He said, no. There's no need me putting in this. There's no way I'm getting in this. After the third time, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it because no matter what, I just need him to stop asking me, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And again, clueless as a child almost. Like, I didn't know this guy's a big deal. Like he is he's the man. And so he's telling me if I put in, you're getting in because I want you here. And he got me in. And that's how I got into biology. Had to start basically all over again. So I took intro biology courses.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
While I'm taking graduate level biology courses. Had to go back and take organic chemistry.
Oh, that's the bane of my existence, that class.
Yeah, So anyway, I did a lot of this stuff and had this weird kind of back and forth in different sciences. Learned, the great thing was I learned different ways to learn. And that's what I would tell anybody out there. It's like, there's lots of ways to learn. Yeah. Like engineers kind of learn in a different way, which is how do I take something and make it work? Scientists kind of learn, how do I take this base of knowledge and apply it in different ways? And it's a little bit different kind of way of approaching things. So there's more memorization over here in the science side. So you need that base. Right. Engineers more about having that logical train of thought and seeing how you can apply your tools in different ways. So it all works in the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
So it all works in the end, but I actually want to ask about the beginning. Where in this whole long story of how all of this happened did exoskeletons come about?
Right. So how did we get into exos? So what are exos in the first place?
I was going to say, that's a good question. What is an exoskeleton?
Yeah. So because most people don't know. If you're in, I'll say like, if you're in your biology classes, 5th, 6th grade, and somebody says exoskeleton, what they're talking about is usually the insect's skeleton. Yeah. Because their skeleton is on the outside versus humans, where our exoskeleton is on the inside. And so it's that hard thing. But in a technology sense, it's very similar to that because that exoskeleton for insects is useful. It helps them move around. It helps protect them. It does lots. It helps them breathe. There's lots of functions for that. Right. So in a technology sense, one of the high level ways to think about exoskeletons is a device that helps you be better. That's a very broad way to say that. Okay. But really what it's there to do is to assist you be more yourself. So that could be everything from, say, if you have some sort of a disability or you need some sort of rehab type things where you need to, say you had an injury, some sort of paralysis from a spinal cord injury, and you need to relearn how to walk. Right. So you can use an exoskeleton to help train yourself to walk again. And it's easier than, having the physical therapist still work with you, but the exoskeleton helps support your weight so they're not having to carry your weight. And it also helps guide you so you can get a quicker rehabilitation by doing that. The other thing is on the other side of that. So you're doing a job and you're having to move stuff all the time, lift stuff, or work with your hands over your head. Okay. Right. You get tired, right? All those jobs make you tired. Well, the exoskeleton increases your endurance. It doesn't make you per se any stronger. It doesn't turn you into a superhuman. But but now, like, okay, you got this bag you have to move around 30 times. Well, now you can move that bag around 30 times or 50 times and it doesn't take as much effort and you're not as tired when you get done.
Right.
Okay.
So a lot of people think of
That's
exoskeletons not just as helping with performance, but also sort of protecting, we call them musculoskeletal diseases, but basically aches and pains in your body. So instead of getting a sore back or a sore arm or sore shoulder, this kind of alleviates some of those stresses so that you can work all day or do whatever, your yard work or go play or whatever. And you're still fine at the end of the day and you can go do other stuff. So one of the things that sort of got me in exoskeletons, besides some of my friends, was also seeing like my mother-in-law, she had bad knees and she couldn't move around very quickly to play with her grandson. And so that limited some of that interaction. So we talk about exoskeletons in a way like it helps you live your life to your fullest. And that's what is really the promise of technology. Yeah. And there's a lot of different versions of them, but that's kind of like the broad concept. It's something you wear just like a suit. So sometimes people call them exosuits. And it helps you with some sort of function. So it could be, and most of the time it's some sort of physical function. So that's really what it gets down to. And just like we were talking about earlier, it could be robotic too. So it could be everything from non-robotic, which we often call them as passive exoskeletons, or it could be robotic, and we call those, usually people call them powered exoskeletons, or some folks even still call them wearable robots. So there's a lot of terms that we use for this. So that's why it's like, it depends on who you're talking to. If you get into like medical world, some people will call them an orthotic, just like a brace or something like that. So, so it's a little bit everywhere.
I
hope that helps. A lot of different.
So what are these made out of and how do they attach to the body? Like, are they strapped on, are they like metal bars? I mean,
so now you're asking some great stuff here. So this is what makes it really interesting to me. So, I've got this weird background with science and engineering and stuff like that.
Right.
So why I get into exoskeletons? Well, because I have this weird background and because exoskeletons touch across so many science and technical areas. Everything from material science to textiles to even artificial intelligence and computers and all that. All of those things go into these in one way or another. And so you do wear it. Most of the time it depends on how it's made, but a lot of times there are straps and stuff, or cuffs that hold it onto your body. Sometimes it could be a sleeve, like a neoprene or other type of material sleeve that holds it.
All right.
But there's, like you said, there's got to be a way to attach it to you. And, from a science way, that attachment is going to help transfer whatever assistance it's going to provide to you.
Yes.
So that's really key.
So can you give us an example? And also, I guess my big question is, are they sized for different people? Right?
Yes.
Because if a kid wears it, it's going to be different than, say, like a grown adult or, even a woman versus a man and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So it is very much like clothes. It has to be sized appropriate. It has to be comfortable and it has to fit. If it doesn't fit, most of the time they don't work very well. Just like think about putting on the wrong size shoe and wearing it all day. That's about as effective.
What a great
If you want to make an exoskeleton ineffective, you put on the wrong size and try wearing it all day. That's just not going to work, right? So you got to get the right size. You got to get the right one for what you're doing too. Same thing with shoes.
Right.
You wouldn't wear a dress shoe, the shoe you wear to church or some fancy type event to go running in. So, it's the same thing here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way I'm hearing you explain it is much better than I've ever really thought through before. We had a recent episode where we were talking to someone and he gave us a very good description of the difference between augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR.
Right.
And I see this exo world as being more AR, where VR would be, okay, there's a robot and it does the job for you over there.
Right.
But this is more like having an exoskeleton is more like sort of augmented human.
Correct.
Where you're just getting the help that you need to get.
Right. And so So you're right onto it. So I'm going to read you the official ASTM standard definition, just so you can see how this works. So the official definition is very broad, but this may tie in well. It's a wearable device that augments, enables, assists, and or enhances physical activity through mechanical interaction with the body. So you're right on it.
All right.
Yeah.
So with that, you were just describing, and you've mentioned it several times, like it depends on, just like you were saying, you have to get it to fit right. And your shoe analogy was perfect there. So is each exoskeleton designed based on what the need is for the physical activity?
Exoskeletons in general are designed and developed based on some functional type area. And so this is one of the challenges that we have in this technology is that oftentimes people want to say, hey, I've got what we call an upper body exoskeleton. So it's to help you work where you're doing stuff above your head. So think of a mechanic who's like underneath the car and is trying to do stuff. So they have to raise, right? And so you can wear an exoskeleton that'll help hold your arms up so you're not having to hold them up and getting sore muscles in your shoulders and all that kind of stuff. But if you wear that same exoskeleton all day long, guess what? The mechanic isn't underneath the car holding his or her hands up all day long. And so now it can kind of get in the way of some of the other things you do. And so that's one of the challenges is they're designed for kind of a specific area. And sometimes they can not be as helpful in all these other areas. And so you face this kind of challenge of like, okay, how do we use these in the right way where they help the most and they hinder you the least? That is the big challenge out there.
Yeah, exactly. So where would someone get one of these? Can you make your own, or can you buy one, or what? Like, where do you get them?
Absolutely. You can make your own. You can go back old school and get some sticks and rubber bands and you can make your own. And there's some, kits you can get off the web. A friend of mine at the University of Central Lancashire has a kit made just for kids. It's a freely available design. He does it for a lot of UK kids and stuff like that. And it can make it out of paper. If you got access to it, the schools you can 3D print the parts and stuff. And you can make just a little kit and most of the time an exoskeleton will go across a joint. So this kit goes across like your elbow joint. And so you can feel it helping your arm kind of move a little bit. But you can take, 2 sticks, a bungee cord, and put it across your elbow joint and see how it would help you lift something up. There's very simple designs out there to start with. And then if you want to go fancier and fancier, you can buy it. There are some exoskeletons that are starting to be available for the consumer market for regular folks through Amazon and other places where you can buy stuff. But most of them, you have to go directly to the company, or you have to, a lot of them are being sold business to business, as they say, because they're made for either the workplace or they're made for a medical type situation. So you'll see exoskeleton, like the Veterans Administrations, their hospitals, a lot of them have exoskeletons in their clinics to help people who have spinal cord injuries or stroke patients to do rehab.
Okay.
And then
that makes sense.
Other places also. So that's where they are right now. But if you're a young person, I mean, why not try to build one? Just like a robot. Try to build one, see what you can do, put some sensors on it, and have fun. That's the best place to start.
Yeah, sure. I think so.
I love the idea of having fun with it. My mind, as you've been describing this, for whatever reason, the scene that popped into my head was right at the beginning of the movie Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Forrest has braces on his legs to help him run. But we forget about that because most of the movie, he doesn't have the braces anymore. So we all remember the run, Forrest, run sort of thing.
Right.
And the way you just said, at the very beginning of Forrest Gump, he was the outlier. He was the oddball because he had those braces. But the way you're talking about these exoskeletons now and the fact that they come in packages and kits and they can help in a whole lot of different ways, it sounds a lot cooler to, it directly connects to that robotics world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think of the braces that Forrest wore. They were very much about, straightening the legs and bones and making them grow where he could move in the right way, but they were heavy. And so in a way, they were almost like an exercise device for him too, because he had to move those along with his leg weight. So an exoskeleton, if you turn that sort of an exoskeleton, that brace could be used to actually assist. So while he's straightening his bones and stuff like that over a period of time, he could have still walked and ran at the same speed that he normally would. That's the promise of the exoskeleton.
I see.
So with the brace, the way it was in the movie, he was always slower than everybody else, right? Until the braces came
It wasn't assisting him in any way.
Just straightening the bones. That was the purpose of it at the time.
Doing its function. That's it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's really exciting, the types of things that are possible with this. I mean, the technology is still developing, and this is what I would say is super exciting for a young person. It's like you can get in it and you'll be just as great, and you can do as many things as anybody else, because we're all still trying to figure out what's the best path forward. So there's a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay, so tell us about these exo games that you do, because this sounds so cool.
Right. So this is one of the things we've been working on for a number of years, and it's sort of modeled after a little bit after the Olympics. It's modeled a little bit after some of these games they have overseas in Sweden that does this with robotics and helps people with paralysis and other things. It's called the Cybathon. So they have a competition like that. And so we looked at a lot of different things as far as a model for this. And we thought, what would be super fun is have teams of kids build exoskeletons and then compete against each other. And we would give them the framework of that competition based on the standards that we're developing in our committee. And because a lot of the standards are about how you test an exoskeleton.
Right.
I use the fancy word standards, but really it's like, okay, if I build something, how do I show it works? We call that a test method or a standard, but that's really all it is. It's like, how do I show this works? And so we have a lot of technical experts from around the world. They get together and they put all their minds and expertise together, and they come up with these test methods. And so we took those test methods and took parts of them and built the exo games around this. And so now when the teams come in, they compete with each other. They do, build a thing, compete against it. They see how well they do or do not do. They see if their exoskeleton actually does this stuff. Sometimes the exoskeleton falls apart and they have to rebuild it or repair it. There's all the stuff but it also helps all the people that are developing the standards too, because it shows, is it actually really testing the exoskeleton and is it showing whether it's working or not? So it's a two-way street, and the teams get to do presentations and all this type of stuff, and they get to talk and work with the other teams, because we encourage the other teams to kind of work together, talk to each other, learn from each other. And so what we're hoping is every year we'll have more and more teams coming in. They'll be sharing this knowledge, and it will grow the community, and it will open kids' eyes up to like, hey, there's stuff to do over here in this exoskeleton world that's very similar to robotics. And there's a lot of challenges here that you can do great stuff in. So it's fun.
It does sound fun.
The third one is going to be this coming year in 2025. It's going to be in New York City. We're actually working with the Department of Homeland Security and the NIST, which is National Institute of Standards and Technology. We're working with them to put it on up there right in Manhattan. So it's going to be a fun time.
Wow.
That's exciting.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay. The games sound great. I do want to ask just a little bit. You've talked about so many different potential ways that exoskeletons can be used. Could you give us a couple more examples that are already out there being used, that maybe just in our regular daily lives, going to school, going to work, going to the store and coming home, maybe we haven't noticed, but if you point them out to us, maybe we might see it?
If you have a parent or a relative or a friend that works in a warehouse, there's a likelihood that they may have used an exoskeleton, because there's especially any kind of person that does restocking. Maybe and I won't do an advertising plug here, but maybe if you have someone that works in the aerospace industry making planes, say here in America, you have somebody that works in the automotive industry making cars, you may know somebody that uses exoskeleton. And I'll tell you, it's probably, you're not going to go down to your big box store like your Home Depot, Lowe's, all those kind of things and see an exoskeleton yet. Not yet.
Okay.
But in these businesses where people are making stuff, they are coming out there and they're being used in certain places. And we're still trying to figure out all the places where they fit the best, because I say this all the time. They're not like peanut butter. You can't put them on everything. So it's
true.
Right. So, where you have to lift things, move things around, work overhead, just anything where you have to get in an awkward position. Like another one, this was a safety concern for a major company where they didn't want any chairs on their floor because chairs were a trip hazard. And so instead of having chairs, they now have their workers where they have basically an exoskeleton where when you squat down, it basically puts legs down. So you have a chair.
It's a wearable chair.
It's a wearable chair.
Cool.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I say there's all sorts of different types of exoskeletons, and you can't say, oh, is this one thing or another? Most people want to say, hey, it's a robot kind of thing you wear. It's not always that. It can be, but it's not always. Yeah. And so there's a world of possibilities. And that's why I want kids to get involved so that we can find even more possibilities.
So where can they find out information about this?
So there's a lot of places. We have a website, is etcoe.org. And so one of our jobs is to share information about exoskeletons. There is a website called the Exoskeleton Report. They do basically journalistic type pieces about the exoskeleton industry. And if you want to go real sciencey, you can go to PubMed or any of the journal literature databases and pull up all sorts of articles about exoskeletons, what people are doing research on them, where they're going, all that.
That's so cool.
And, if you go to our website, the etcoe.org, we have a bibliography. So there's a link in there, and we have over 1,100 references where people can pull that right into their reference software. I mean, we're kind of being fancy for people, but you pull that right into your reference software. And now you have all these references, and you just have to be able to go and use that to go find it. And it's got the identifier numbers in there, so you can go specifically to the article and everything.
Wow. That's cool.
That's
awesome.
Very cool.
That's one of our jobs, is just try to share information the best we can. And we're always happy to talk to people and get them connected to the community.
Fantastic.
This sounds super cool. And it sounds like exoskeletons are sort of right on that verge of becoming much more mainstream in a whole lot more areas.
Right. And I think that's the thing. It's like we're going to see it come out more and more over the next few years. There's a few products that are out there on the commercial market. And so it's just on that, as we say, tipping point where it's going to start to be coming out. It's like, somebody's going to be at one point in the next few years, somebody's going to be buying this as a Christmas gift. It's going to be, it's going to happen,
I mean, why not? Yeah, that'd be amazing. Oh my gosh. So this has been so fun learning about exoskeletons. This is way more than I ever even thought about them, right?
Agreed.
Okay, but now we are at the time in our show where we ask our guests to give our listeners a challenge. So what challenge do you have for them, Bill?
So I have a very interesting challenge. So I want our guests to identify 3 jobs where you could use exoskeletons and which type of exoskeleton would be best for a job. And I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
A upper body exoskeleton that helps you hold your hands over your head and do stuff above you. A back exoskeleton that helps you lift stuff, or a leg exoskeleton that helps you move around and squat. So think of some jobs where you might do some of those functions, and let us know.
Yeah, that sounds really fun.
And I appreciate the thought prompts you just gave everybody on. One of those 3 probably just lit off a light bulb.
I hope so.
I like that.
Yeah, no, this was great. Well, thank you so much for all of this amazing information about a new type of technology that probably many of us hasn't thought about. Thanks for being on Solve It for Kids, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. Anytime. You guys have a great day.
Wow, what a fun talk, and we definitely could have kept talking to Bill right there. There are a lot more applications for exoskeleton than I had any idea that I was thinking about before this episode started. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, now it just kind of makes you think, like, where could I use an exoskeleton?
Yes.
Would it be helpful for me if I did this? And all of these amazing things. Plus, I mean, building one is just stinking cool, right? It would be so fun to build one of these.
100% right.
Yeah, exactly. And I love this challenge that Bill gave us.
I definitely like this one. Identify 3 different jobs where you could use an exoskeleton, and love this add-on. What kind of exoskeleton would work in each of those jobs? May not be the same type.
Right, exactly. I mean, this one gets your brain thinking there, people. Think kind of outside the box, outside of the things, right?
I see what you did there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you come up with a really cool idea and you want to share it with us, you can tag us on our Facebook or Instagram, and we are now on Blue Sky. Look for us on Blue Sky. But don't forget to check out our website, solveitforkids.com, where we have all of our past episodes, and you can go through and listen to a bunch of different ones, and also learn a lot more about the information that we're giving you in the podcast.
And Jen is too humble to say it. You may want to go find the fact that she has her own robotics book by Jennifer Swanson. Until next time, Jennifer and I are going to be wondering how we in our lives could solve some problems or get some assistance with exoskeletons. We hope you will too. Yes. You'll hear Jen and Jeff next time on
Solve It for Kids.